Silent Hill 2 Remake was my game of the year last year, so it's safe to say I was really looking forward to Silent Hill F. So much so, I'd say it was my most anticipated game of this year, which is why I regret to say this is the most conflicted I've felt on a game in a very long time. Because for me, I think that the tone is there, the atmosphere is definitely there, the visuals and the setting are top tier. We often get these Japanese horror games, but they're never really set in Japan. So the fact that this one does is a breath of fresh air. And I, of course, played this in Japanese. If you played it in dub, we need to take you out back and put you down. And then moving on to the visual front, it isn't only just maybe, if not number one, at least top 3 best looking games on the PS5 from a fidelity standpoint, but also artistically. There are so many sequences I wish I could show you but can't due to spoilers, but the camera work and cinematography in some of the scenes, the flowers is such a great visual representation in this game. The enemy design is some of the best I've seen, at least on a visual standpoint. The metaphors here, without getting into spoilers, but the child abuse angle and the soundtrack, and the game is brutal and graphic and doesn't hold back in certain scenes. There's just so much to love here. And then on the other hand, the game is shit. It took me 5 hours to really get into it, and the game took me 9 hours to beat. The puzzles, they suck. They very rarely give you clear instructions. And being honest with you, I either brute force my way through, like with the Scarecrow puzzle, or I simply looked it up on YouTube. And that obviously takes you out the experience, it takes you out the immersion of everything. And I was locked in when it came to that. I'd turn the lights off when I turned the game on. And then the other thing is, this game is a Souls-like. And I don't want to hear the, well, actually, technically, I don't want to hear those people who say, it doesn't have a bonfire, you don't lose currency when you die, it has difficulty options. Because it's like, first of all, we don't do story mode over here. If you want a bitch ass nigga to review games, you gotta take a left, you gotta go somewhere else. No, we're not doing story mode. But it has Souls-like combat, so maybe it's just best to say Souls adjacent. And the thing is, obviously I knew this wasn't Silent Hill 2. I did avoid watching trailers and gameplay, but it was said, we're trying something new, we're going in a new direction. We want it to be more action focused. And I wasn't against them trying something new. I like when people try something new. My issue comes from 3 different perspectives. Souls-like fatigue. We get too many of these games already anyway. We should just leave them to FromSoft. And even then, if it's not Bloodborne 2, I'm not really interested in what FromSoft has to say right now. That's angle 1. Angle 2 is the developer said, this isn't a Souls-like. So I'm like, phew, crisis averted, everything's all good. I did not want a Souls-like, and I start the game up. It's fucking Souls-like. So you got me hyped up, averted my expectations, and it's exactly what you said it wasn't. And then 3, it just isn't very good. The concept of a story-based Souls-like horror game in concept works. The fact that the enemies are difficult, as a player, you really have a reason to be scared, not just visuals. And there's a football quote I like, and it says, on paper, we had a great team. Unfortunately, we played on grass. This shit is low-key ass. It's not super ass, it's not unplayable ass, but the combat is floaty, yet stiff at the same time. It has the Unreal Engine 5 animation shank to it. There's no real weight behind it, yet it still feels sluggish. The combat, it just isn't, it's very rarely satisfying. It doesn't feel impactful, it doesn't feel punchy. And some bozo is going to point out and say, well, that's how it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to want to fight. You're supposed to want to avoid enemies. And I'm sure that sounds like a great argument if you're a complete dumbass. These developers, this is their first game. They're a support studio. We can show them some grace and say, all these other areas, you did a great job, fantastic. But the combat is mediocre without saying, nah, you meant for it to be mediocre. Because they didn't. And it's clear they didn't, because there's things that you implement to support the fact they don't want you to fight, right? They give you durability on your weapon. So, your weapons breaks, you're incentivized, okay, I don't want to use it too much. So that's angle 1, how they get you to not want to fight. They overwhelm you with enemies, so you say, oh, I'm going to run. And then the game is just difficult, so you're like, ooh, I'd rather don't want to take any damage. I'd rather just avoid them. There are things in place to make you not want to fight. There's other times where you have no choice but to fight. Rooms where they say, kill everything in sight, and then you can leave. And the combat is the same piece of ass in those scenarios. So there are things in place to make you not want to fight. I'm not arguing that. There are times where you're not supposed to want to fight. There's times where you're supposed to fight and the combat is the same piece of shit. And maybe piece of shit is a bit harsh. It's just not satisfying. And I saw someone say, well, this is a 15-year-old girl. She's not Kratos. And it's like, first of all, no spoilers. She doesn't turn into the God of War, but clearly the guy that said that didn't beat the game. Second, she literally has the Leviathan axe. Like, what are you talking about? How is this not Kratos? On top of all of this game is only 9 hours long. Now, I'm saying only 9 hours long. I like that it's only 9 hours long. I'm down to pay $100 for a short, quick experience. For me, that's no issue. The problem is, unfortunately, everyone else seems to want the games to be bloated to justify the price. Like, no, let me enjoy my game. Let me experience it exactly how it's supposed to play, not dragged on, not having my time wasted so I can say I got my money's worth. Because now I'm just getting fucked. And obviously the problem with this is you have all the people on the timeline and, you know, the Reddits and everywhere complaining, hey, I paid this much and it was only this long. So now developers don't want to release short games. So they make this game so you have to beat it like 4 or 5 times to get all the endings. Like, what? No, I don't like replaying games. That's just me. I don't even like replaying a game 2 years down the line. I like beating my game. Maybe I go for the platinum. When I go for the platinum, it better be a single playthrough platinum where I can go do cleanup. You know, maybe if it's a story linear game, okay, a second playthrough, that's cool. But 4 or 5 times, you're doing too much. So I just looked them up. I looked up all the endings, the alternative cutscenes, and you know, there's other pieces of areas, there's other story cutscenes, there's, you know, other gameplay mechanics, but it's like, you're recycling. We're recycling here. I don't want to be recycled. I don't need this attempt to pad time. I got my experience. And not to give spoilers, but I also feel like the endings get worse and worse and worse because the endings get more wholesome. And the more wholesome the endings get, you know, there's no good endings, I'd say, really, but the more wholesome the endings get, it takes away from the story, I feel like. It takes away from some of the themes. It takes away from some of the implications. So the visuals, the music, the setting, the story are good, but the combat and puzzles suck, which is the video game part. So does it suck? Normally I'd say yes, everything's good, but the puzzles and the gameplay, that's a bad game. And I don't want to be like the people who say, we never played Silent Hill games for the gameplay. Because it's like, brother, please, can we have some standards? It might be true, but you're not supposed to say it. Like, no, you're not supposed to give excuses. But I will say that the combat suffices, and you do get more powerful as the game goes on, making it so that delay in the combat, that sluggishness, isn't so punishing, making it a better experience in the back half of the game. And the gameplay does genuinely tie into the story in a way. I'm not denying that. I just think that fully leaning on that is too much of a crutch, it's too much of an excuse. But the gameplay and the story, and they tie in together. And again, the game is pretty difficult. It's not super hard, but I died a decent amount, and I was on edge, and I was like, ooh, and I was, you know, I wasn't just walking through cakewalk. And I think that's not a bad idea for a horror game. A lot of the horror games just limit your resources. So the fact that this is a bit more difficult, I liked. And I say all that, but I looked up the stats, and only 1% of people played this on the hardest difficulty and beat it. The other 10% or so played it on story mode. And so if you're one of those people, I feel like you just kind of you got to sit at the back of the class. Like, we're not trying to hear from you. You played on a game mode that's made for people who are supposed to play it if they've never played a video game before. Like, you know, you got to go somewhere else. Of course you had no issue. Like, you never felt the resistance when you're getting your ass kicked and you're fighting against the enemies and controls and all of that. Another thing I want to mention, and it's such a small thing, that's why I saved it till the end, but this is one game that surprisingly takes clipping very seriously. There's a bunny costume, and if you where the bunny is, and there'd be a scene where they'd clip, they take the bunny ears off you. That's one instance, and there's other instances where, you know, Bloodborne and all these other Souls-like games, your weapon goes through the wall, it goes through a fence. No. None of that happens here. You do have to, I don't know if I like it, you do kind of have to position yourself. If you're in a tight corridor, you might say, let me back up into the hallway where there was a bit more space, because your weapon, it hits the walls a lot, and it can be frustrating because sometimes you get stun locked when your weapon hits the wall and now you're getting swung on, and it can create a frustration. But I don't remember any single instance of clipping in the entire game. And so there's attention to detail here. But in summary, I think Silent Hill is a mid 9 out of 10. It's an amazing game that fires on all cylinders, apart from things that actually matter. And that kind of downplays the greatness of it. But at the end of the day, I kind of am a gameplay fast person, and this does leave a lot to be desired on that front. But all these other factors are so top tier, I just can't shit on the game. And I guess like the two main questions that people want to know with this game is it a Silent Hill game? And is this better than Silent Hill 2? And to answer the first part, the game has fog everywhere, so it's like, yeah, it's a Silent Hill game. And then the second, is it better than 2? I think I lean towards 2 a bit more, but I think they're special in their own right. So I'd probably go 2, but they're 2 different games. 2 different stories, different types of stories, different settings, different atmosphere. This game obviously is a newer release. It looks better than Silent Hill 2. And like I said, Silent Hill 2 was my game of the year. And this year, I think Silent Hill F might be my game of the year. I'm kind of undecided. I think I have it over Death Stranding 2. I have it over Ninja Gaiden Ragebound. I think I got it over Expedition 33. And so it's like, I like it. I like it a lot. I just think it kind of sucks.